a waste-to-energy incineration plant. Great for waste, bad for health. And when it's built on your doorstep, a nasty surprise. So the people of Wuhan have taken to the streets. You can guess how Chinese authorities are reacting. Welcome back to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. A huge multi-day protest in China has sparked a crackdown by police. And no, I'm not talking about Hong Kong. Big protests happen in mainland China too, but they're a lot less common. The latest one is in the city of Wuhan in central China. Wuhan is home to 10 million people. I know that sounds like a lot of people, but Wuhan is only the 7th largest city in China. Locals there are furious about a construction plan for a big plant that would burn heaps of garbage and turn it into electricity. Sure, turning garbage into energy sounds great, which is why I eat at McDonald's. But in practice, it's not so great, which is why I always regret eating at McDonald's. The problem with the new waste incineration plant in Wuhan is that it's supposed to be built next to a residential area. No one wants to live next to a literal dumpster fire, which is why last week, this residential area was filled with loads of unhappy protesters and a column of police about to charge. In the past, environmental protests have been one of the only types of protests the Chinese Communist Party has tolerated, partly because it's easy to make sure the polluting companies or corrupt local officials take the blame instead of the central government. But the scale and length of the protests in Wuhan are drawing attention. The residents of Wuhan are angry because the waste incinerator would make their already bad environmental problems even worse. There's already a lot of air and groundwater pollution in the area. Now, says a Wuhan resident, they say they have to build a waste incineration power plant, which is a threat to our lives. Waste incinerators produce toxins like carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxide, and sulfur dioxide. Sulfur dioxide can cause chest pains, breathing problems, eye irritation, and a lowered resistance to heart and lung disease. Or, as another Wuhan resident says, there are many ways in which this will have an impact on people's lives. The air pollution, the harm to health, all of that. Officials came up with plans for the waste incinerator after the landfill in the Xinzhou district of Wuhan ran out of space. That was back in 2012. So, what have they been doing with all that garbage for the past 7 years? Well, some of that garbage has been turned into noxious fumes in one of Wuhan's 5 already existing waste incinerators. Waste incinerators are supposed to be at least 1 mile away from any houses, but one of them is just 300 feet from apartment buildings. By that standard, the new plant that people are protesting is slightly less bad. It's a couple of thousand feet from the nearest residential district. But it's also near 2 schools. Well, I say you gotta toughen those kids up. What doesn't kill them will only make them stronger. What's that, Shelley? I see. Apparently that does not apply to toxic pollution, unless you're the smog monster from the movie Fern Gully. Okay, so those kids probably shouldn't be breathing burning garbage. And part of the problem was that locals only found out about the plan a few weeks ago. That was after some people said they found evidence that work had already started on the new plant. At first, in their rage about not being consulted beforehand, the rabble-rousing people of Wuhan launched into a furious petition writing campaign. But apparently that kind of quiet civic engagement proved too much for the local authorities, and they arrested about 20 petitioners and threw them in jail. And that's when protesters took to the streets. Apparently, there were more than 10,000 of them. And then, Chinese authorities sent in 1,000 riot police. Now, you might think Chinese officials would be concerned about all this footage being uploaded to the internet. Well, they are. There's probably a lot more that didn't get uploaded because authorities in Wuhan blocked mobile phone signals and social media. Still, some pretty intense footage leaked, like this group in riot gear in a shopping mall harassing people. Or police roughing up one of China's most dangerous elements, an elderly woman. The scenes have drawn comparisons to the anti-government demonstrations in Hong Kong that we've recently covered. And while the Wuhan and Hong Kong protests are not directly connected, they both point to a deeper issue. The Chinese Communist Party consistently blocks people from normal civic engagement. So when authorities do things that the public doesn't like, people feel they have no other way to deal with it than mass protests. In Wuhan, it's a toxic fume-spewing garbage burner being built just outside people's homes, without allowing the public to express their concerns. Or, if they did express their concerns, those concerns got ripped up. And then came the beatings. Clearly, the real problem with these protests is vertical video. But despite that, it looks like the protests may have made the authorities blink. Authorities put out a letter saying that a location for the plant had not yet been finalized. What is rumored online to be the garbage burning project that has already started is in fact demolition work for a railway construction project, the letter said. So, did the people of Wuhan buy it? That looks like a no. So on Saturday, the authorities backtracked and announced they would not start without approval from the public. So, are the people actually winning? Or are local authorities just trying to buy time? History could be a guide. Back in 2016, in the city of Xiaotou, about 60 miles from Wuhan, authorities were constructing a similar waste-to-energy plant. But after street protests, the project was stopped. 2 years later, authorities built it anyway. Looks like Chinese authorities might just be the real dumpster fire here. So what do you think about the Wuhan protests? Leave your comments below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching China Uncensored.